felt like I was jumping out of a plane every single night without a parachute until 4:30 in the morning. Okay, it's time for another revolution in the Soulution. The Marley brothers pull up their whole like tour bus, Damien
Wow.
and Steven. I have a whole photography book of
Wow.
signatures from Ernie Penacoli's book. What's more amazing, it all led to me working in the mayor's office, which makes no fucking sense.
Hey there, it's me, Roxy Cottontail. You might know me as a DJ, artist, designer, and New York City party promoter, or from my bunny logo. I'm putting all that on the table and writing about the years that transformed music and the New York City scene. I've interviewed 250 friends and colleagues I admire. I ask all and reveal all. Please join me and the Tales to rediscover the 90s and the Y2K magical landscape of music, art, technology, and streetwear. This is Roxy's Tales.
I am Ariel Palitz, the first ever appointed executive director for the New York City Office of Nightlife. But before that, I am a native New Yorker, born and raised in the city, grew up going out.
My guest this week on Roxy's Tales is the first mayor of New York City nightlife, Ariel Palitz. Her mayoral contribution to nightlife is immense and deeply respected, but the early years of party promotion and club ownership at Sutra was the foundation. The origins of Ariel's nightlife journey before becoming mayor is history and empowering. My respect for her hustle and destiny to uplift subculture and the arts is forever. Without further ado, Ariel Palitz.
I always say, for kids that grew up in New York, you sort of go from spin the bottle to bottle service. We didn't really go into like clubs or basketball camp or whatever. It was just like, okay, I'm going to Fiorucci, and I'm going to look as old as possible and put on red lipstick and get into a limo with Boy George and Marilyn and head to the red zone. So ultimately, I evolved into just obviously finding my people at night and loving that energy and diversity and freedom and cool that just felt like real life more than any other life, and wanting to be in that as much as possible. So I went to college eventually. Well, actually, before that, I was working with Michael Tron at Mars, and I was, his like call girl, basically, where I would just call people to let them know they were on the guest list. So,
Oh,
hi, this is Ariel calling for Michael Tron to let you know you're going to be on the guest list tonight.
wow. So that was like 1989, I think Mars started, right?
That would be about right. That was sort of like my first little toe into it. And then I wound up going, to college. But while I was in college, I started promoting these weekly open mic jam sessions called the Soulution, a common ground for diverse expression. I was at the University of Hartford in Connecticut. We had the Hart School of Music, and there was just like all of this like lack of communication between the different schools, the business school, the music school, the art school.
Yeah.
And just out of fear of dating myself, it was the Rodney King incident that sort of sparked
Yeah.
this activism, I guess, in me to join this on-campus organization to find common ground. And so my answer to that was to throw a party every week. And so we would have a house band from the Hart School of Music, and then we would rotate different people in and out of the open mic. My friend Carter was doing a party, or was managing Nation on Avenue A, and he was like, you should do your party here, because we went to college together. So I started it at Nation, my Soulution open mic jam session, a common ground for diverse expression. I think it was for poets, singers, musicians, gospel, spoken word, and drag. Like I really spelled it out. And I wound up doing that. I also wound up working at SOBs, and just like booking for them, and I wound up having my party there, wound up moving it to the Tunnel, Rebar, Anarchy Cafe. So I was doing it for like almost 4 or 5 years. I wound up doing this crazy run of the Soulution. Eventually I was living on First and First. I've lived on 3 of the 4 corners of First and First since 96.
You're at the center of the universe.
Exactly.
Ah, I love it.
And there used to be bar 16 there, which I loved going to all the time. And then bar 16 sold and these people were buying it. And I wound up having gone to grade school with one of the owners, and he's like, you should consult me on like, what's the neighborhood like should the drink prices be in the music. I'm like, I'm just going to give you money and I'm going to be a partner, right? And it was like my first time being able to like be an owner instead of just a promoter having to deal with owners. And it was called The Flat for 1 year.
What was this year?
That was 2003.
Okay.
And it used to be bar 16, then 2003 it was The Flat. I was an investor, and it was more like a model bottle celebrity place that was run by a bunch of guys. I was the only woman in the mix, and nobody really ever listened to me. If they did, they would have never called it Flat. I was like, first of all, it's a duplex. Second of all, none of you are English. Third of all, nothing is sexy that's flat. Flat ass, flat tits, flat hair, flat tire. I'm not wearing a t-shirt that says flat. Like, so anyway, after a year, they were over $150,000 in debt and started bailing out. And I took on the debt and gave everybody like tax in kind forms, and took over the space, revamped it, renamed it, relaunched it as Sutra Lounge, and then opened it and ran it for 10 years.
Wow.
But obviously we had Toka Tuesdays with Tony Touch, and Sutra was meant to be like the Soulution, a common ground for diverse expression on the corner of First and First. It was meant to be hip hop, rock and roll, you know, LGBTQ, Bollywood, country, whatever. Like I just wanted it to be all New York. And it was extremely diverse, and the type of people and music that we played, but the hip hop nights took off like stratospherically, and ultimately is the native language of New York culture, like music culture. It's our native tongue, hip hop. And there was no place for really hip hop to really go at that time. Like just like the fear of hip hop parties, racist dress codes. And like, here we are, like, we know Cool Herc and Primo and Kid Capri and all these DJs, and they didn't really have their own home in the city. So it just blew up, and we became known as this like globally known underground hip hop like dance club, which is great. I mean, it was the best thing I ever did. I loved it so much, and also happy I'm out and live to tell the tale.
Yeah, and successfully too.
Yeah, so I was able to sell it. It was like the last years you could even get key money. Took a whole year off to recover, came back, started a consulting company called Venue Advisors. So I got my commercial real estate license and help people buy and sell venues, get their liquor licenses, and consult them on operating and also on getting out of it. And then 2.5 years in, that's when the mayor announced the creation of the Office of Nightlife, and I applied like everyone else. I submitted my resume into the portal, and you know, I guess almost 1,000 people applied, and I got it. And that's it in a nutshell.
Wow. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Let's start with you doing Soulution. And how long did that go on the college campus at Harvard?
I think it was a solid 2 years on campus, maybe 2.5 years on campus. And then it was almost 5 years in the city.
Between Nation, SOBs, and Tunnel.
Nation, SOBs,
Rebar.
Tunnel, Rebar, Anarchy, Cafe.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was simultaneously, that was my night job. During the day, I was working at Susan Blonde Inc. I worked at Sony. I worked in catering. Like I had
all the jobs.
Yes, in order to support my nightlife habit. Then after I was doing like the parties, I started Soulution Inc., right? In like 2001 to start doing like special events. So I segued into from simply like party promoting, like club promoting to event planning.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I wound up doing like the awards ceremony for the first like hip hop film festival, which is where I met like Herc and all of like the real hip hop legends, is where I really started to like get to know them personally through
Yeah.
that whole thing, and doing fundraisers. I did a gala award ceremony for the Lower East Side Girls Club, you know.
Oh yeah,
So
I think I did one for you with it was like Two Boots Pizza,
yeah,
Yes Girls Club at LPR one year.
that's right. And so that's when eventually in 2003, after doing like the event hustling thing, and I had an opportunity to be an investor in the venue, then I was like, oh, I'll just have my own club.
Do you know how long it was bar 16 for?
Oh my gosh. I mean, they must have been there at least 10 years as well.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but I mean, they were a legendary spot. And, you know, a lot of the DJs that spun there, like Evil D, and that was where Vampiros Lesbos was. And I really wanted to keep the underground DJ driven dance vibe, which I sort of did.
And so the flat was only for 1 year and
Right.
it went into debt, and then Sutra really begins and rebranded in 2004.
That's right.
Do you have an archive?
Oh, I do. I've got almost 150,000 hours of video footage. I've got almost every single flyer I ever created from like, even from back in the Soulution days. Like I've got books and books and books of every like flyer, every press clip. Steve Lewis was the first person that ever wrote anything about me in the Village Voice on his Camel page. Remember the Camel pages?
I mean, Camel was just big on supporting all of nightlife. Okay, so moving from all of these venues, is there any fantastic moments or memorable events that stick out from Nation to SOBs or Tunnel Rebar?
I mean, it was just beautiful. You know, it's just like the diversity. That was the whole purpose, was to mix it up and to have total representation. So we would have like jazz musicians, you know, like I put together a house band myself of funk, jazz, soul musicians that I would pay for their rehearsals every week. And then when I would get into the venue, I had like a sign up list, and we would promote to spoken word artists and drag artists and gospel and opera artists. And I would get up on stage and I said, okay, it's time for another revolution in the Soulution. And then I would just randomly pick people from the list and then create impromptu bands.
Wow.
On stage that had never rehearsed before, but just having the foundation of some of the house band. And yeah, a lot of also the house band members I had were from the Hart School of Music that came and graduated and came back to the city. Khalif Babatoon, Shindig, like all these super cool jazz cats, Peter Griesinger, and they're all like, you know, real solid jazz musicians now, and they followed me and we continued it from school.
That's beautiful. When Sutra begins, what are like the weekly nights that happen?
Yeah, I mean, we would have a rock night like with Dimitri Mack. You know, I did nights with Rainblow and Caswell. You know, Juliana Huffington. I gave D Nice his first gig. We had, you know, Bambata and DJ Premier and Rakim would come. But at the same time, like we would have like just people from, again, it was like Wall Street to, Chinatown gangs, but it was diverse. We had like the Marley Brothers pull up their whole like tour bus, Damien
Wow.
and Steven and, you know, all of them, and show up on Bob's birthday after the Nokia Theater performance, and changed all the light bulbs to red, green, and gold. And we would also have reggae downstairs, DJ Gringo, been to, because we had 2 floors, we could have like hip hop upstairs and reggae downstairs, or rock upstairs, and have hip hop on 1 floor and a gay night downstairs, which is like, it was almost controversial. Like, you can't blend those two together. I'm like, oh yes, you can. So, it was all about the music and the vibe. And it was just endless stories, obviously the regular nightlife stories where people fell in love and had families and fights, and it's sort of universal stories.
Yeah. When Sutra opens and the weekly events happen, what were like the most successful nights that were going on?
Well, obviously Toka Tuesdays with Tony. It was like 7 years old. I think Andrew WK did a few nights, and Dimitri did our rock nights on Wednesday. Hot Stepper was our reggae night. We did Mixed Babies with Kenny Rodriguez. I mean, Just Blaze used to spin on a regular basis. Just Blaze would come like with like demo tracks, like for, Live Your Life with Rihanna, but he's the one singing on it and testing it on the dance floor, to see if people would move, and test out tracks before they would even go public.
Wow.
Like, he'd show up at like 3:30 in the morning when the dance floor was fully packed. The Roots did a few record release parties with us. We had our resident DJs, like DJ Oba, DJ Center, where, even on Friday and Saturday nights, like, we really refused to play.
Commercialized.
Yes. It was always like deep, soulful house, funk, soul, like disco, old school hip hop.
It is amazing, to advocate for what you want to hear and not like bend to popular culture.
Yes. And I think that's why we managed to maintain our musical integrity. What's more amazing, it all led to me working in the mayor's office, which makes no fucking sense. I still don't believe I'm here.
So how do you think all of that has impacted you now?
Well, I mean, I'm a very fulfilled person. I feel like I have always sort of had the luxury of always doing what I love, and it feels like a very like, purpose driven life in a sense. I mean, one thing I didn't mention was when I was in college, I was a cultural anthropology major, and I was studying music and dance and spirituality and mystical experience through time, through history, going all the way back to like caveman times. So like owning a nightclub, working with DJs and music and dancing is all part of my anthropological study of society and culture. And so much like owning a nightclub, working in government, it's still both public service.
Yeah, crazy. Good for you. Oh my God. Like, but to know that you wanted that life like so young,
Well, I think I just knew where I was happy, and I just always gravitated towards trying to always do what made me happy, and doing what made me feel like I was, contributing. As much as anyone, when you are the organizer of a party, or music, that you are really contributing to people's happiness and well-being. And so I feel, like the club and this, it's all sort of the same work in a different way. And it feels really good to, be helpful and of use as best as I can.
With the, onset of like party and nightlife photographers, where did that come in? And like, who do you remember
I mean,
shooting?
so essential. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like you need the documentarians. We had Tone and Human and Kenny Rodriguez and
I know Mel D. Cole because
yes, and
I
Mel and
streamed his Flickr, and there's a lot of Sutra of them.
oh yes. I mean, I even hired my own videography team that would come in on weekends. This is why I have, and during the week and on special events, I've got like a storage unit filled of tape that I don't even know what the hell to do with, just because I knew we had to. I also had my own little camera and I would always record myself. But I think it was it was another way to be in the ecosystem, right? And to make a living. And I mean, Ernie Penacoli, who published the book Who Shot Ya, was a photography book of hip hop that I used as a yearbook at Sutra, and it was always down by the bar, so that anytime any legend that was in that book was in Sutra, they would sign. I have a whole photography book of signatures from Ernie Penacoli's book, whether it be Salt and Pepper or whoever. I was like, oh my God, they're here. And so I've literally I think, we need these documentarians. Like they really are the the proof, the evidence.
Yeah. And then with, cell phones and camera phones and smartphones becoming a regular contribution, how did you see that evolve?
Well, I mean, it was good in a sense that, people, you weren't solely responsible for spreading the word about your venue all on your own. There were, I guess, pros and cons about it, because you also can't control it, the messaging and the imagery. So, there's definitely a very deep connection that you have in hospitality, because you work as a team to pull off miracles every night. I mean, I had almost the entire same staff for almost a whole 10 years.
Wow.
There, so many of them are family. Even the ones I fired always still came back and I'm still friends with. I think people don't really talk about the families you build, enough. The ones you work with, the ones you party with, the ones you promote with, the security, those people have saved actual lives in front of you. No one will really understand that level of anything can happen stress, except for the people you go through it with.
Yeah, I think that was probably what separates a club owner and just a club promoter. Because
the liability and the pressure of having to make sure every soul gets out, not just out your door, but home. Even, I felt like I was jumping out of a plane every single night without a parachute until 4:30 in the morning. It was like the only time I could really breathe, no matter where I was in the world, until we closed. And it was always at 4:01 when the shit hit the fan. You thought it was over at 4. Nope. 4:01. That's when shit goes down. But obviously, it's a gift to be able to have that opportunity to really just create space for creative people, for promoters and DJs and the people who love it. Mostly people who own venues are just providing the canvas. And I think the real magic happens if you don't try to control it too much and you just use your instincts to share that space with people who you entrust will do something meaningful with it, and that was like the best part.
I like the concept of providing a canvas, because it's what it is.
It is a blank canvas, and it could be a DJ party, it could be even a wedding or a fundraiser or live music or a memorial for somebody or some young DJ who's just starting out. Like you shouldn't have, I think that's sort of what's the bummer of the follower. I don't,
Follower-based social media.
yes.
Yeah.
It's like back then we didn't determine whether or not we would hire somebody based on how many followers they had, or it was based on, how much passion they had, what their vision was, how sweet were they, like.
And what can they do to a dance floor?
Yeah, like show me. You gave them an opportunity to show you. That was what I loved, is just giving young DJs and promoters a chance. And then when it was over, it was almost like it never happened because it was so vibrant, so intense. And then like there's like silence. It's like, was that a dream? Did I really do that? Did we really survive that? like it was, I almost need to hear the stories and revisit. Like when people come up to me all the time, like Sutra was the best. I love this, I wish you would come back. Like it reminds me that it even happened because it was like so unreal.
I love it. Inspirational. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for including me in this magical storytelling.
Yeah, I need it. I need the timeline because I think Sutra was such a important, institution as far as like
thank you.
Clubs in that era go.
I think it's like the storytelling is so important because it's like if a tree falls in the woods, if no one's there to hear it, did it ever happen? Like obviously people who lived it can't remember half the shit. So I know I can't.
Talking to over 200 people.
Yeah. Like you'll be able to piece at least one story together with all of our fragmented memories.
Definitely.
Thanks for hopping by. That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, and stalk. Bounce, little kitty.